So I just finished one of my favorite podcast episodes I think I've ever recorded. I talked to Lana Li. She is the writer behind the Substack Love Me Like a Robot. You might know her as the girl that went on 300 dates. And she writes about it. And the part that absolutely shocked me was the fact that she interviewed 12 of the people that did not go on another date with her, and she surveyed them. I think she's incredibly brave for doing this. She writes about why these people didn't want to go on another date with her and what she learned from it and what that experience was like. We talked about some surprising things that she has seen in the modern dating world, and we also talked about her thoughts on AI and how it helps people find love. Now, this whole episode, we are talking about heterosexual relationships. If you're somebody that researches any other types of relationships and you want to come on the podcast, let me know. I hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I do. And if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you found this from my newsletter, thank you so much for supporting me. It really means a lot. My name's Rachel Braun. This is Braun and Brands. I like sharing about tech, culture, and adjacent topics. All right, now let's get into the episode. Hi, Lana. Welcome to Braun and Brains.
Hi, Rachel. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you. So can you please introduce yourself to everybody? I'm a huge fan of your newsletter, but just in case anybody doesn't read Love Me Like a Robot.
So my name is Lana. I'm a dating anthropologist and writer. I also do some coaching and Hinge profile optimization and strategy with clients. And yeah, I started on Substack about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half ago, and it's been super fun. I've been loving this brand new career that I've cooked up somehow.
That's so interesting that you help people optimize their Hinge. I will definitely get into that. That I'm very interested in. So for Love Me Like a Robot, I do want to know, to start off, how did you come up with that name?
I kind of am aware of the inherent tension of data, but also feelings. It's technically a play on the Selena Gomez song Love Me Like a Love Song. I just thought it sounded cute and funny.
Huge fan of that song, was big on my iPod as a kid. And I know you've been writing about dating for a while now. What made you decide to turn into your personal dating life?
So I had been posting on Instagram funny screenshots of conversations and dates that I had had and just weird misadventures. And I noticed that so many of my friends were fascinated by it and were hanging on to every word. And I'd have people come up to me at reunion or other events just being oh my God, I love your dating post so much. And then I was wow, people really like hearing about this, even people in relationships. I had been working as an entrepreneur for many years, but had always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't really have anything in particular to write about. And I was just sort of realizing, I want to do more writing, and everyone seems to really like hearing about my dating life. Plus, I have done more dating than 99.99% of people in the world. So I really have something to say about this. Because I've been dating for 20 years, and I've been on just a really high volume of dates. So I'm an overthinker. So I was I think I have something unique to say, basically.
I'm also an overthinker, but I'm not as open, I think, about sharing about my dates. So you said you went on more dates than 99% of people. That is actually kind of what made me want to talk to you today. So I saw in one of your Substacks, you went on over 300 first dates over 8 years in New York City. How did you calculate that?
It's sort of inferred because I know that the highest year I went on at least 81.
Okay.
And then I also know that on a light year, I was doing 30 and then more likely 50.
Yeah.
So then when you just kind of hand wave it, it's approximately that.
So you're I have experience. At what point did you realize I need to switch something up with how I'm approaching dating?
So my the moment at which I really changed, I had been feeling really good about myself. I finally felt my head was a little bit clearer. And this was the summer of 2024. And then I had been, single for 6 or 7 years at this point and, been on the hundreds of dates. And then he dumped me, and I wasn't that he was very good on paper.
How many dates in were you guys, or how long were you dating?
It was only 2, but he spent the weekend. He flew in from Barbados and spent the weekend and came to see me, and then we spent a couple of days together. And then after he got back, he was hey, I don't you go to bed late and I go to bed early, and this will never work. I was this is so surreal. Every single date for the last several years, I think it was two or three solid years at this point, nothing had lasted longer than 5 dates. Nothing. At this point, I was very I was really willing to accept that not everyone is my person and it's not personal. But at a certain point, it's like, no, this is just too many. Like, I am doing something wrong. Like it cannot be that every one of these men is just a bad man, or like I'm always picking bad men. There's something is off. So I was like, you know what, this is going on too long. I just reached the point where I was like, I can't accept that this narrative in my head of, well, I just need to meet the right person. I don't think I've actually told this before, but I did the same experiment where I surveyed all the men that I had dated. And I did that when I was like 28, I think. And I texted 5 guys and I was like, why didn't you want to date me? A bunch of them were like, I just, didn't feel a spark. And then one of them was like, the sex was bad. And then I was like, oh my gosh, the sex was bad. I just was willing to overlook that. Anyway, but that's sort of a separate story. But this time I did it, and then I got very different answers, very, very different answers back from the men. And the number one complaint was, you vape too, like, a lot. And then the number 2 complaint, 3 out of 12, was like, you're messy. And then the third one where I could actually do something about it was, you just didn't seem that into it. And then all the rest of the responses were not things outside of my control. Like things like, I started seeing someone else, or my dad had cancer, or I just wasn't ready for a relationship, or like whatever it was. Or I just didn't feel a connection, like stuff like that.
And this wasn't all 300 people you surveyed, right? You surveyed, 12 people that either, did they ghost you? Did these people just not ask to go on a second date? Like, who were these 12 people?
One of them ghosted me. Most of them just sort of, I would say the majority just sort of mute, like just never followed up. I think anyone that's dated knows that the very most common thing is that they sort of just fade out, basically. And then I wasn't necessarily super interested in all of these men, but it was, there were at least ones where I wasn't really sure, right? Where I wasn't sure why. And I didn't include in the data set men where I specifically was like, hey, I don't want to see you again, because I kind of knew why I didn't want to, even if they did. Cause like when I say I don't want to see you, they have to be reaching out to me. So I specifically didn't include those, but I included everybody I was sort of like lukewarm on, or just wasn't sure why they didn't want to see me again.
I think it would be hard for me to apply feedback given in that way. If somebody was like, I don't like you because your apartment's a mess, I would be like, well, screw you. Like would be really hard for me.
No, and I'm really grateful that none of these men told me in the moment. I would not have taken this well if any of these men, when we had gone on dates, was like, hey, I don't want to see you again. Your apartment's too messy.
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. I could just you could just either communicate it, or that's just super stupid. I would have discounted it as, oh, you just weren't really that attracted to me, or you weren't we didn't really have that good of a connection. So you're using this as an excuse. And like, really, when they gave me this feedback, I was always like, I think this is just an excuse. And I really didn't believe what they were saying. Like when I got this feedback, I was like at the end of my rope at this point. So I was like, you know what? It's not a big deal. I'm just going to do the thing, even if I think it's stupid. I'm just going to make this change, even though I don't really think it's going to have any positive effect whatsoever. I'm just going to go with it.
One of the responses that I read about that cracked me up, that wasn't smoking or your room being messy or some other life event coming up, was that somebody wrote that you did too many drugs. I thought this was interesting because you were talking about like GLP-1s and melatonin. How did you even respond to that?
I was just really confused at first, because I don't really do many drugs. I think I did do too much nitrous when we were together. And that I think that was genuinely a little bit of an issue then. So I think that's a singular drug. And he didn't mention that. He mentioned a panoply of drugs. So I was like, what do you mean? And then he mentioned sleeping pills. And I was like, I don't have sleeping pills. I don't know what he's talking about.
Do you mean melatonin?
Yeah. I was like, I just have my gummies, my little ones from CVS.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he shamed me for using Ozempic. He was like, look up Ozempic butt and Ozempic face. I hope this doesn't happen to you, or something like that. And I was like,
gosh.
Yeah. And he was not my person. It actually was really helpful to hear that, because it made me feel comfortable and happy that it didn't work out, because ultimately I just don't want to be long-term with somebody where they're very judgmental about stuff like that.
Mindset differences would be hard to, I feel like, meet in the middle there.
I remember being quite sad when I didn't hear from him again because I was like, oh, he's like so perfect on paper. He's like really handsome and tall, and he's like open-minded and like, this. And I remember him being just sort of like, oh my gosh, this like like kind of seemingly pseudo perfect person. But like it was like, I think it's really cemented my belief that when somebody doesn't want you, it truly is a gift. They probably don't want you for reasons that mean that you're not meant to be together. Not that there's something like wrong with you per se, but just that you're not compatible, like fundamentally.
I think that's a really good way to put it. You also talk about like going to this, your mindset shift and like how you approach dating. What was your mindset before? And then what was your mindset after this experiment or during this experiment?
I think the number one thing I changed in terms of what I looked for was, are they behaving in a way that um is showing like, are they into me? Do they seem into me? To be honest, secondarily, am I into them?
Yeah.
And I know this sounds incredibly basic, but I think I see with a lot of other people, and also this is how I dated for many years. It was look, I was like looking for, they have to be attractive. I have to think they have a cool job. Um, they like, I was looking at their checklist of things and like, and kind of prioritizing people based on how impressed I was by them. Um, and not and kind of just trying to ignore, honestly, like if they didn't seem very serious about me or they seemed a little wishy-washy, because I really wanted somebody impressive to work out. The shift that happened was basically being like, you know what, I want to get married, and if somebody's going to marry you, it is so much harder than it is for somebody to just date you or have sex with you. It just is. Like for anybody, for like literally anybody. I can't like invest time in people if they're not showing me that they're like from the beginning like into it. And it's, again, it sounds very like basic and like obvious, but it really isn't. I think emotionally all of us have this fantasy of like, I'm going to get like the best person. I'm going to get the person that's going to impress all my friends. I'm going to get the person that like makes me feel like, oh, it was like my prince has like come, or like, like my dream person has come. Ultimately, that's sort of an illusion, because the person that's right for you is a person that shows up for you. And it doesn't really matter how handsome or rich or whatever they are if they're not showing up for you emotionally. And so, yeah, like it was just sort of like, I don't know, it's kind of this like logic, like, okay, I have to just pick people who are into me. It was just, yeah, it was weirdly hard. Yes.
I mean, I'm sure that is difficult in New York City too, where at least in my early 20s, there was a time where you were dating for fun. And then there is a switch as you get older where you're dating maybe for marriage or for like a longer term partner. And that switch isn't always automatic in a city where it feels like there are so many options. There are so many beautiful, smart, successful women, especially in their 30s, that are single in New York. It's like, okay, I really need to switch how I'm dating. That's hard because you just spent the past however many years dating in a certain way. I think it's like difficult to kind of like make that switch mentally and retrain yourself. And after 300 plus dates, if you had to go back to date one, what would you tell yourself?
I think one thing I learned from my 20s is that you can't like skip to the wise ending. I speak for myself. Like, I couldn't just make the good choice from the beginning. If I had told myself in the beginning, pick a guy who seems into you and choose the highest status, sexiest, hottest, richest guy from amongst the pool of men that are showing you consistent, mature, emotionally stable interest, I probably would have just said that. But like, I think to get there, to actually be able to execute correctly on it, it required a certain level of experience of the opposite. And I think some people can learn much faster. But I think to a certain degree, I had to make some mistakes where I pursued men where I was like, oh, wow, they're super successful and handsome, and I'm going to like try and make that work. And to really see for myself that it was not a good match, that like those men are genuinely single for a reason. Unfortunately, a lot of these men from the outside look very shiny. They're actually truly abysmal partners, like you'd be truly
It's like a
profoundly
tale as old as time in your 20s. It's
yeah.
so it's so it's good. It's like learning by doing experience. One thing that I love, by the way, about your newsletter is your charts. What data are you looking at in particular? What's the most helpful data? And then what's the most surprising thing to come from that data?
For the Hinge, the one that I find kind of interesting is outbound like match rate. And if for anyone that wants to do this for themselves, what you do is you go to your Hinge profile in your settings. There's like an export my data option, and then they will email it to you in this like zip file 3 days later. I like to see like of all the likes that you send out, how many of them are reciprocated. And then I also like to see how many matches are there from inbound likes. The most interesting thing that I saw from this data is that the number of successful outbound likes in a given month was like pretty much 1-to-1 correlated with the number of like successful inbound likes. So basically, if I send out a bunch of likes to people that that I wanted, and then they matched with me, if I had like say 10 times as many, if I send out 10 times as many likes that get reciprocated in a given month, I'm gonna get 10 times as many inbound likes of people that I actually want to match with, basically. So like it's very much like what you put in is what you get out. And it like made sense to me when I like just thought about it from the perspective of like the user experience that the dating app would want to have for its users. Like they want people that are actively seeking people to get more visibility because they know that this person is showing signs that they want more dates. And then if they're engaging with them and they're actually matching with them, it's a better experience for all the users to see this profile because they're like, oh, this is an engaged person.
That makes a lot of sense. And are you doing this for your clients when you're talking about like Hinge optimization? Are you analyzing their data, or is this more like show me your profile, let me take a look?
You don't need to. I think it gets to your question before about how data factors into dating. I think people do reach out to me because I do a lot of data analysis, and I think they want to talk to someone they feel like is kind of analytical. I'm also like extremely aware of the limits of what data can do. Functionally speaking, it just doesn't matter. Like data only matters on sort of to like give some color and context, essentially, to give a sense of like, okay, I can see what sort of the algorithm is doing, and also like to have a sense of the market. Like basically, if I know that New York City is a better, has more women than men and this particular demographic range, and like it's useful for stuff like that. But when it comes to actually using a dating app, it's not helpful, honestly, to know what your outbound match rate is or like what percentage or like number of inbound likes you accept, because it doesn't, you can't really do anything with that information. It functionally just comes down to like who you are targeting in the profile that you have, and also some degree of like messaging strategy.
Data means nothing if you're bad vibes, like
or like no one is attracted to you, or your target. Sometimes people are just doing very difficult things. Like I feel like working with men, there's this huge focus on like a very small segment of the market. Like basically women ages like 24 to like 32. And it's just like, they're like looking to get married, which is why they're willing to pay me, because it's like a high ROI. Like they're like, oh my gosh, I need to like have kids. I want to have kids. And then like, they're all fixated on like this very small age band of women. And every other man is too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, oh, like it's kind of interesting seeing it from the other side now that I'm like out of it. I think I would be a little traumatized, honestly, if I were.
Yeah, I was about to say, was there anything surprising that you found from working with men?
I don't know if this is surprising or if it's just, it's also hard to say if this is just the type of man that chooses to reach out to me and work with me. But I get the sense that all of them are very much searching for who would be the best mother slash like genetic slash womb for their children. It's very much like finding a wife to have kids with. It's very focused on like the production of children, I guess.
It's a little creepy. I feel like I'd rather somebody be looking for compatibility.
No, me too. Yeah, no, it makes me a little uncomfortable, but like it is, like I also get it.
Yeah. If you want to have kids, you want to make sure that the other person also wants to have kids and would be a great mom. But I feel like it's like happy wife, happy life. Like I feel like I'd want to be able to know like, oh, could I make this person happy and would they make me happy before, I don't know, some other things happening down the line.
Yeah. I think the way that I approach date, like for me, I was always like open to kids, but it wasn't such a huge focus for me. And I think one of the things that is like, it's sort of like kind of nice to age out in a way of being prime age, because the men that are interested in you are not interested in you because you're like the perfect age to like have a long fertility window to have children with. They're like, no, I'm giving these like 35 plus women a shot because I'm like, I care a little bit more about compatibility, or like I want to make an exception for somebody who's like really great that I just have a really good connection with. I think that's like sort of the slight upside is that you're being evaluated much more on other merits, not your fertility merits. But yeah, I just never was that comfortable being looked at that way because I wasn't that into having kids. So it's kind of nice in that sense.
That is a really good piece of advice, mindset to have. Be like, okay, this is such a benefit. I'm being looked at as a human being, not as like a breeder. Like that to me, that is a plus. That is totally a plus. And do you have any advice for people that are maybe still in the stage of life where they're being looked at as somebody just to have kids with rather than like an ideal partner?
I think to be fair to men I work with, I don't think that by any means they like if they go on a date with somebody, they it's very much still being evaluated from like a compatibility. Do I like this person angle? I think there's just this overhanging sort of like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to find I'm trying to find the mother of my children. I think at the end of the day, it's just about being aligned on in terms of what you're looking for and just like listening to like what they care about and making sure that they're that you want the same things,
Totally. And
basically.
it would suck going on a date or continuing a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to have kids if you want kids. Like that would be like
Right,
the
right.
biggest bummer, huge disappointment, and also like a lot of time, maybe not time wasted, but time that could have been put towards creating a relationship with somebody that did like align on the same future.
And I think that like it makes sense. Like I think it makes logical sense. I just think that it can feel a little cold. And in the same way that like a guy is like, oh, she doesn't want to date me because I don't make a ton of money or can't give her the lifestyle she wants, and it can feel kind of cold because it's not about like who you are as a person it, quite as much. At the end of the day, just enjoy the options and enjoy that prime time, and just realize that the fundamentals are always the same. It's always about just making sure you're aligned, and also kind of understanding like what your top 3 non-negotiables are and then focusing on those and not so much on like this endless list of like superficial things that may or may not actually matter for like a relationship quality.
What are the most common non-negotiables that you've seen?
Usually age up is the men that I've seen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is there any
um,
for women that are non-negotiables?
I haven't worked with as many women. I mean, like, you have to be attracted to somebody. I think at the end of the day, like that is, you got to feel some attraction. I think that's kind of non-negotiable for both sides, to be honest. Like both men and women just need to feel attraction. I think sometimes what I've noticed that people really put so much focus on the photos, and then they don't have the ability to sort of be like, okay, I maybe they're better looking in person. Maybe like when I meet them in person, maybe their personality will kind of like it doesn't meeting somebody in person is different than seeing a photo of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like a photo is very constructed. People just put a lower like barrier on photos because you have to feel some attraction, but a lot of times, both men and women have had the experience of like going out with somebody and then you're like, oh, they don't look as good, or like, oh, they're like, I don't know, just the way that they talk, or like, I don't know, it's the vibes weren't there. Or they,
Yeah.
I just didn't like them in person. And then sometimes you'll meet a guy in person or off an app and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more attracted to them in person than I thought I was. And that's very common experience.
I see that a lot, especially like when you have a friend and they're not super excited to go on a date and they come back from the date and they're like, wait, he was actually awesome. Like, I feel like I do see that more often than not. And I'm really interested to hear that more of the people that you're working with are men, because I read this article about all these different dating events in New York City and they're struggling to get men to come. It is just a bunch of single women. Why do you think men feel more comfortable going to somebody like you than going to a event for singles?
It depends on what age group. I guess the largest age group of singles would be people like 25 to 34. Actually, the interesting thing demographically is women do outnumber men, but it's most pronounced for college educated women. They do outnumber men by like, it's like 3 to 2 essentially in like
Wow.
the 25 to 29 age group. And then like at 30, it's kind of like, yeah, like all kind of becomes even again. Like they all get married and then like it kind of becomes a little bit more even, although still female weighted. I think the men that work with me are more motivated. I think I would say like a lot of them are actually quite good looking and doing well. Like that's kind of the surprising thing is that a significant portion of the men I work with actually are already doing well on apps and already getting dates. They just want to do like better,
Yeah.
essentially. Like it's
Overachievers.
yeah. I get like overachievers. And then some of them are like, haven't dated before, but they're older and they want to like feel more comfortable with the process and stuff. I hosted a reader meetup and then I was like kind of hoping it would be like a singles thing, but then it was like very tilted towards men. So I didn't have that issue at
Yeah.
my event. It was like mostly men. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to
Yeah.
know. That's good to know. And because you are on Brian and Brains right now, I do have to ask you about AI and
Hmm.
dating.
Hmm.
So we've been seeing a lot more talks about AI being integrated into things like dating apps. And to be fair, these were already algorithms that were working. We just didn't maybe have the terminology like AI until the past few years for the common folk that are using dating apps. But obviously there's some type of machine learning, I assume, that has been on the back end of a lot of these. How have you seen AI impact dating, especially on the apps?
I tried using some of these apps. I was not impressed. Um,
You're talking about apps that you say
use
they're
AI
using
that
like
like market
AI.
their use of AI. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also I think it's hard for me to know, but like I imagine that all of the major apps now incorporate some form of machine learning into their algorithms for matching people. As far as like dating goes, I do think that the idea of AI is very seductive because I think it lines up with the illusion that most people have that they just haven't met the right person, and that if they just got the right person in front of them, that that would solve their problem. And what I kind of figured out through my own journey, where I went on so many dates, like a number that I would never want any human to go on as many dates as I did. Like it's just crazy. It's insane. Um, and like I was really able to answer that question for myself of like, is this just a matter of meeting the right person? And the truth of the matter is that it's not. There's probably like 20% of it is meeting the right person, but most of it is really about being the right person and about picking the right person. And like those, unfortunately, are just as, if not as important as meeting the right person. You could put like 20 of the right person in front of you. You're going to be like, I don't like their shoes. It gave me the ick. Oh, they have this thing and I want somebody who also skis and has the same hobbies as me. And also I think like that other thing about them kind of annoys me. And oh, they like did this thing and I really didn't like that. And I'm just going to like move on to the next one. I think these behaviors get in the way much more
Yeah.
than just like the person themselves, because it's very easy to have this illusion that there's just infinite good options and then you just keep trying. And I think one thing I learned very clearly in my dating experience is that very early on, I remember like talking to my therapist and I was like, oh, if only if like person A, like if I took like how like fun and sexy he is, and then but I had like sort of the emotional stability of like person B, and I had a little bit of like kind of the my intellectual connection that I have with person C, and I just put them in one person. Like I like that's all I want. And like that didn't work. Like it just yeah, it's not how it works.
But you're in a relationship right now. You
Mhm.
live with your partner currently, correct?
Mhm.
Did you guys meet on a dating app?
We met on Hinge. He was actually my most compatible.
Wow. Does
Yeah.
that mean like it gives you a percentage of most compatibility like on the app, or is that something like that you came up with?
So they use the Gale Shapley algorithm, which is like a stable matching algorithm that they use for things like med school matching and organ donation. The basic premise is that it's an algorithm where you have like proposers and like acceptors, and then at the first round, all the proposers will be like, okay, that's my top choice. The people who decide will be like, okay, either accept or reject that person's proposal.
Yeah.
And then whenever you don't have a match, you go next down the line until each person ends up with like their best option, essentially. I don't really totally understand how they calculate it in the back end, but that's
Yeah.
like the basic idea is that you are each other's best option. Like,
I think that's how sorority recruitment works.
oh, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for anybody who's been through recruitment, that is exactly dating up. That is so interesting. Congratulations. It sounds like all the data was worth it. And you live in a wonderful apartment. You guys have a dog. Very, very cool.
it was really worth it. Like I will say that like all of the struggle and like the self work and everything, I really feel like my life really sucked like for a while, and all my friends can tell you like I was in a dark place for a couple of years, and then kind of like pulling my way out of it and like figuring all this out. Like it was like really worth it. I think there's a lot of discourse online saying, oh, you know, a man's not worth it, it's not going to solve anything. And like it's true, they like you have to, you know, work on yourself. But I am like kind of amazed at just how much better my life is. Just every facet of my life and my happiness is just so much better from having like a good partner, and because I'm also much more mature now and have much better relationship skills, and I'm just have much more realistic expectations as well. It's just going really well. So I'm just very, very happy. And yeah, it was worth the struggle. It was worth all the being rejected hundreds of times.
Well, I absolutely love to hear that. That definitely should give people hope if there's somebody going through the dating journey right now. Lana, where can people find you online?
On Substack, Love Me Like a Robot.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining Brown and Brains. I can't wait to hear what people have to say about this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been lovely to chat with you.